So the biggest of the big three stories is what you're seeing right here, but you're not going to see that until the last story, so stick around. Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. Here are the three big stories and three public service announcements in one video. Okay, so the first, this is probably going to be my last about Putin's election. Putin may be the biggest dupe of his fake election landslide. Okay, officials' results showed that he won 9 out of 10 votes, not quite 87%, but nonetheless, I mean, it's pretty close to that. So the most important outcome of any Russian election is legitimacy. Putin told Russia's top election officials when they gathered at his residence outside Moscow in November. That's the foundation of political stability. But he didn't have legitimacy. And he could have had legitimacy and still won, I think. Let me just talk through this and I'll explain what I mean. There's no doubt that Putin will use the outcome as proof of mass support, but such a distorted election in which all challengers were crushed and even the dead may have voted for him risks undermining the political stability that he craves. Add in another first, in some 29 regions, including those most prone to protest, voting took place electronically, described by independent election monitors as a black box method designed to facilitate vote tampering. But perhaps the most flagrant violation in this landscape of illegality, says Ekaterina Shulman, a Russian political scientist or analyst at Carnegie Russia Eurasia Center in Berlin. By the way, she's brilliant. I've done videos just about what she has talked about. Has been a voting army of dead souls. So there were tens of millions of state employees and students who were coerced into voting. It was like in Soviet times when you were forced to vote whether you wanted to or not. I'm convinced that an absolute majority of Russians won't have much faith in the results of this vote, but they could have. See, that's the baffling thing to me. So I'm looking at a U.S. News and World Report poll, January 9th, 2024. The vast majority of Russians supported Putin and like legitimately supported Putin. The findings from NORC at the University of Chicago paint a largely positive picture of the Russian leader domestically. Nearly two-thirds, 65% of respondents indicated that they would support a Putin bid for a fifth presidential term in the country's March election, a share that indicates 53% who said that they would strongly approve of the nomination. 66% also said that they were more likely to vote for Putin over any other candidate. Look at this. 53%. Already you have a majority who strongly support him, and then another 12% who somewhat approve, and then 20% in the middle don't really care one way or another, but you've already got 60+% locked up. You didn't need to do whatever else you were going to do. Like the shenanigans only caused you to look like you were an authoritarian dictator, where if you had just left it alone, like tell me what you think about this, because I've been saying this for 2 or 3 videos now. If he had just left it alone, what he should have done is fling the doors wide open to the free world and say, come on in, free Western press, just watch our polls and just monitor them to your heart's content. We have nothing to hide here. Instead of stuffing the ballots, but he wanted to have this uber look of like, look how awesome I am. So instead of getting this 70, or instead of getting the 87% that he got, he could have had a solid 60-ish, 65, I don't know. And then he would have had the real appearance of legality because it was really legal. So who was it that came out and congratulated Putin? Kim and al-Assad and Xi and Modi and I can't remember his name from Iran, right? It's really a who's who of not the greatest players that you want to be associated with. Okay, let's shift gears. Let's talk now, instead about Putin, about Trump. So Trump's failure to secure a bond could put his New York properties on the chopping block. So he has to pay this $400 million fine, and now he's appealing it, but he has to pay it and then appeal it. That's the way the New York system works. And it's really a bizarre thing to watch. I know that people that don't like Trump want to, like, yeah, go get him, go at it, but it's actually potentially backfiring. And I'm not supporting Trump here. I'm really not. I'm trying to explain how people are going to view what's happening here. Here is Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank fame. I want you to think about what these people are thinking as you're listening to him speak. How are they going to hear what has happened?
Case is about Trump anymore. I think this case is about New York. It's about the American brand. It's about what we promise the world in terms of fairness and justice and investing capital in the country that's built the largest economy on earth. Forfeiture, seizing of assets. Is that in our nomenclature in America? Is that what we tell people that want to bring their money here and protect property rights? Forget about Trump. Nothing to do with Trump. You think this is good for business in New York? You think this is good for business in America?
She does. Look at her face. She's gleeful about this, right? They just want to damage Trump. And they realize that they just want to damage Trump, right? So it's not really helping if you're like, again, I know people are going to misinterpret this in the comments and they're going to say, well, Gerdes is just in for Trump. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm just telling you how people will see this, and it's actually making him bigger with each one of these things. And stop it.
To take a law that we used to protect people against buying refrigerators at an overpriced value decades ago and apply it against an individual and then talk about seizing assets like he was in Venezuela or in Cuba. This is a very, very, very bad look for New York. And everybody around the world is watching this. This may be great for the Attorney General, but this is not good for America. Deutsche Bank, who made the loan, was made whole. And let's make a penalty of $500 million against a crime, apparently, where no monies were lost. Great message for New York. Great message for America. Bring your capital because we'll protect your property. I think that was a statement that would be much better made sometime in Venezuela. I'm not kidding. That's a scary, scary message. And by the way, there are no such thing as $500 million bonds. There are no $500 million bonds. Never been done before. Never. This law has never been applied. Forget about Trump. Nothing to do with Trump. Everything to do about America and the New York brand.
Okay, and so what he's just said is fair in the sense that, like, this shouldn't be happening in America, let's say. Now, these people over here are going to say, see, it's political persecution. Now, they might be right, they might not be, but that's not the point. The point is that's what they're going to experience with this. And let's look at another example. So this is Navaro. He's going to jail. Who is he? Biden's Justice Department shatters historical precedent, imprisoning Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navaro, for contempt of Congress, destroying a 250-year tradition of honoring executive privilege. So he was trying to hide behind executive privilege, rightly or wrongly. He was trying to use the shield of executive privilege. Obama's Department of Justice didn't prosecute Eric Holder and Lois Lerner following contempt referrals after they invoked executive privilege. Bush's Department of Justice didn't prosecute Josh Bolton or Harriet Miers following contempt referrals after they invoked executive privilege. The Justice Department hasn't prosecuted executive officials who were instructed by the president to invoke executive privilege until now. So again, it seems like it's not even-handed. Navaro, a Harvard-educated economist known for his efforts to restore American manufacturing, will serve 4 months in prison. He'll turn 75 in July behind bars as a martyr to the regime. Okay, that's a little heavy-handed, but now, his argument is, when I walk into that prison today, the justice system will have done a crippling blow to the Constitution's separation of judicial powers and executive privilege. So he was in contempt of Congress because he was behind what he thought was a veil of executive privilege, but the Biden Justice Department still prosecuted him. But the Biden Justice Department isn't doing anything about Hunter Biden, who also was in contempt of Congress. So that's exactly why you're going to see that these people are going to say double standard. It's not fair, rightly or wrongly. All these things add up in their minds, and maybe it shouldn't, but it does. Now, if you think that I'm just supporting Trump, you're wrong. I'm not. I'm a conservative without a candidate, right? I'm hoping that the No Labels Party gives me something that I can actually vote for the first time in my life. I've always voted Republican, and I can't. But I can't vote Biden either. And I know some people will criticize me that I just don't really care. I do care, but I can't vote for him, and I can't vote for him. So I'm hoping No Labels will give me an alternative. Okay, so this is Greg Terry in Ukraine. Look at this.
Okay.
What are we looking at?
I got it. Look at this. A minute. Okay, look. Okay, your thoughts. What is that? Tell me.
It's a Russian spy balloon.
Okay.
I'm sitting here researching it right now.
And yes.
Guys, listen. Cannot tell you where we're at, but right there is basically the border between Russia and Ukraine. And we were coming down this road right here, and we saw this thing in the sky. It's actually getting closer to us constantly.
Yeah, this one.
We're sitting here going, what is it? What is it? What is it? And I actually sent a picture to Johnny Pierce saying, help me identify this. And you can hear traffic going by, but there's really no military where we're at in this place. That thing should be shot out of the air right now, guys. That is 100% a Russian spy balloon.
Okay, that's it.
Blue sky.
Okay,
You're
so
on.
this leads us
Yeah.
to the question of why are we looking at a Russian spy balloon, or why are the Russians even using a spy balloon? They seem to be using technology that's older now. So they used spy balloons early on in the war, as I understand, and they're reverting back to it for some reason that I'm not fully sure what the reason is. But they're doing things that old school like they didn't do before. So, for example, because their conversations were picked up by wireless communications, they started wiring in the trenches at some point. Like it's really interesting how the further they go along, the more they do old school type of things in order to prosecute the war. Okay, if you want to see more of this, you can go to Greg Terry's channel. This is at Greg Terry Experience, and you can see the rest of that video. This is just to show you what's going on. It's really interesting, and I think this is the only place you're going to see that. By the way, if you're going to Greg Terry's channel, please look about the fundraiser that we're working on right here. We're trying to raise $200,000 for 3 of these. Now, these 3 snatch vehicles, this is Pete right here in the center, right next to Greg. He's a medic, and people like him will survive longer if they can have these kind of vehicles rather than somebody's broken down Lada that they're trying to evacuate soldiers from the front end. Okay, so thanks for that. That's public service number 1. Public service number 2, I saw this on Twitter. Bellingcat team is really keen to share and teach our investigative methods, so open source research techniques used for effective reporting everywhere. There's a few ways you can learn from us, and so among those are you can join a training that costs like $1,000, or you can read their guidelines. They're available. Or 3, if you're a visual learner, you can go out here to Bellingcat on YouTube, or you can go to bellingcat.com and read the reports. But they have a wealth of information out here, and it's something that you might want to check out. Third big public service announcement, and that's this. Guys, it's still time to be contacting your legislators. Everyone in the United States, you can contact Mike Johnson. I put this out just about a half hour ago. Thanks for continuing to call Mike Johnson's office. Be clear and direct. Say things like Ukraine needs support now, or the US looks terrible to our allies, or make the border deal, or whatever it is that you want to say that you think will be useful. But please be polite. Nothing comes of being a jerk. That's not going to be helpful to anyone. I found that you get further in life by making your case without being unnecessarily mean. And it turns out even politicians have feelings. So be firm, be clear, but be polite. All right? Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and the coffees. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.